Hi, I'm Marie Camenares, and I'm here today to show you a watercolor demo. We're going to do a beautiful painting, and I'm going to take you through some of the basic steps in watercolor painting: wet on wet, wet on dry, and we're going to do a very beautiful simple scene, and we're going to alternate this picture. Actually, this is one of the photos that I took on one of my walks down by the water. And let's get started. So what I'm going to do is just draw a simple horizon line. And let's say that will be right here. And then I'm just going to also add a small line for where those trees might be. And then I'm going to just follow along in some measure those marshes where they come out and they go in and they come out a little bit over here. Nothing has to be exact. It's just a very, very serene landscape. So what I'm going to be using today is actually just two brushes. This flat Royal Majestic brush, which is an 9.5, and also this Royal watercolor brush. This is a number 6. What I like about this brush is it has this kind of a tip, which you'll see we'll be using that in this watercolor painting, and so does this brush. Also, for my watercolors, for this demo, I'm just going to use this very simple pan. This is a set that's made in Germany, and I feel this is a good beginner's set. It wasn't terribly expensive, but it does have a selection of colors in there, so it's very easy to access different colors to use for the painting. Winsor Newton is also another brand that's wonderful to use for watercolors. You need some water. I also keep on handy a plate with some colors that I have mixed in the past, and paper towels. So the first thing that we're going to do is a technique that's called wet on wet. And what I'm going to do is just take the water, take it onto my brush, this nice clean brush, and I'm going to wet the paper. And I'm going to put a generous amount of water on here, and I'm going to cover just the sky area. I'm going to leave the land part dry still. I'm just going to cover the dry air, the sky area, and I'm going to make sure I have a nice, even, wet coat. There you go. And you can see when you have it all covered, it's got a nice glistening sheen to it. Then with my other brush, I'm going to take some water and mix it into my blues. This is like a cerulean blue here, and that's a really nice color for the sky. I'll mix up a generous amount, and then I'm just going to plop it in randomly. But I'm going to keep the darker color of the blue to the top and the lighter blue going down into the horizon, because in nature that's what happens when you look out to the horizon. It does get lighter as you go further in the distance. So I'm also adding some more water to this, and you can see how nicely the color is just traveling along the paper. Now I'm also going to add to that a little bit of this very pretty pinkish purple color into that. And just watch how nice it just all blends together. Sometimes the distant horizon does look a little purpley. So we're just dropping colors in just here and there, just adding a little water to have it do its thing. Now, here's something that you can do. You can tilt the paper, and you can see it's traveling along. You can tilt it to the side, you can tilt it back down. And another technique you can do when you do a sky is you can take a clean brush, just dry part of it off with the paper towel, and you can take that brush and move it across your sky to give your sky the effect of certain clouds. Another thing that you can do when you're doing a sky is take a dry piece of paper towel and scrunch it up and just blot it. And you have the effect of clouds just by doing that. You would want to avoid areas where it looks like polka dots. You can just add a little bit more water and just get that to just very nicely blend. And let's just take the paper towel and blot it. I think we have a good sky there. Okay. See, as I'm blotting, I'm picking up the color. I'm leaving the white of the paper to show through, and that's what's giving me my clouds. And I can also take that paper towel and drag it along just like I did with the brush. We could always go back to that and add more color if we want the sky to be darker. But for now, let's just leave that the way it is. Now I'm going to show you how we're going to take a little bit of a darker green, referring back to our picture here, and we're going to drop in this area here. And it doesn't have to be exact. This looks like a tree line. So right in here, I'm just going to put this little bit of green in. And as you can see, I'm going right up to where that water stopped. So this gives the opportunity of the green to bleed into the sky. And I don't know if you can see that, but it will show up there a little bit more as we're working with it. But as it bleeds into the sky, it almost looks like distant bushes. Okay, we're just going to leave that there for now and rinse off our brush. And now we're going to just drop in this area here where the marsh grasses are. So for that, I'll use a number of different colors, but I'll take my brush and wet it. I'm using this whole time the same slender brush, and I'm mixing some water into this yellow ochre color. And I'm going to just drop this in, and this time this is going into wet on dry because there is no water below. Now this is going into the wet on dry. I'll just add a little bit more here. And you can see how now the color is not bleeding at all. It's staying exactly where I put it. And that's exactly what I want right now. Okay. I'm just going to put a little bit more in here. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to leave out all of this vines and trees, all bare and everything. But as the paper dries in the sky, we'll get back to it, and I'll show you how to put in a little tree and how to use just the same brush, how you can put in some grasses and put in some bushes and a little indication of the tree trunks. But for now, we're going to keep moving on. We're going to go into our water area here. And as you can see in the picture, the further back we go, the lighter the water becomes. And it's pretty dark right over here in the front. We're going to go back to our flat, wide brush, and we're going to go back to our wet on wet application, but only in the front of the water. I'm not going to do wet on wet way in the back here. I don't want it to touch. I'm just going to stay clear of the land areas and just concentrate here right in the middle of the water. Okay, I have the water in pretty well, and I'm going to go with this same flat brush now and my palette. I have a little bit of ultramarine blue right in there, and I'm going to use horizontal strokes to indicate the water. And maybe I'll add a little purple in there, why not? Look how nice the colors are blending here. Just drag this along a little bit. A little bit more of the ultramarine. And just with watercolor, you basically have to let it do its thing too. Look how pretty that looks. And we can take our smaller brush, and with that cerulean blue, it would be nice to add a little of that color in there too. And where we want it to get lighter, we can just take the brush, rinse it off with water, and just drop a little of it onto the paper. And if you feel like you have too much water on the paper, here's a little trick that you can do. Take your brush and just kind of dry it on your piece of paper towel, and you just can lift it. Lift that color and lift the water right off the page. Watercolor brushes come to a tip, and they have a fatter part on it because they hold a lot of paint. It's what they call loading the brush with color, loading the brush with paint. So here I am very carefully going into this area, showing how the water is getting a little bit more distant, a little bit more lighter. And what I can also do, tilt the paper again and take a smaller piece of paper towel, roll it up, fold it, just like that, like a line, and I can just breeze by and make an indication of waves in there as it picks up some of the color. Okay, isn't that just lovely? It just looks so peaceful. Now, we're going to go back to our painting and our picture. And what I'd like to show you to do is put in this little bit of line of distinction between the grasses and the trees. It's a little bit darker. So for that, I'm going to take the brush with just a little bit of water on it and bring it into the brown. And just very gently come along here and drop in a little color. And if it bleeds into the green, that's fine. And I'm not going across like a line. I'm skipping over different areas. I think it makes it look more natural. Also over here, where that brush, where these grasses are meeting the water, there is a darker line because there is some shade there. So we're going to put that in too with the brown. And like I said, if it bleeds, that's fine, because then it will show up as a reflection in the water, and we want that. Put a little bit more paint on my brush. Put a bit of shading in here and in here. Okay, what I'm also going to do, I want to show you how to make grasses. I'm going to take a little orange. I'm going to drop a little orange in here. A little orange in the background too. A little orange back in here. And I'm also going to take a little bit of our green, and I'm just going to put it right over the orange. Put a little bit more back here. And you can see the indication now of a tree line. But we don't want it to be all the same. So we put in a little variation. And remember when I told you before how I was going to show you how to make branches and leaves of trees? I'm taking the brush, it has that little bit of green in it, and I am going to just roll it. And tap it. And roll it and tap it. Rinsing off my brush, I'm going to take a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to drop that into here too. And I know you think this looks pretty messy, but I'm doing this for a reason. I want to show you how I'm going to make the grasses. Rinsing off my brush, taking this end of the brush, and I'm just scraping along to make grasses. It can go in the water, all different directions. And there we go. It's a quick and easy way to make grasses. Put a little bit back here for tree trunks. We can do that too. And I'm going to just reinforce this darker area here. I think I may just take a tiny bit of black for that. Just drop it in. I'm not adding a lot of water now because the paper is still pretty wet. And we may want to put a little reflection of that right in the water, which we can also do with our brush. There we go. That looks good. And being this is in the foreground, we'd want to put maybe a darker blue right in here. And we can take the brush tip and we can put a little bit of reflection, a little bit of wave, scatter a little bit of the paint. Let it do its thing, let it do its magic in there, and that looks pretty good. And we'll put a little bit of blue back in here, because blue has a tendency to make things recede. You don't always have to use black when you do watercolors. You can mix blues and browns and really get some nice dark effects with that. And right in here, this side of the painting is basically the same thing. We can add our brush in there with the flat end and just roll. I'm doing it in the blue, as you can see. I'm not wasting any paint. Put in some grasses on this side. We'll put a little tree trunks here, and then I think we can call it a day for this. Put a little bit of shadow into here. And this time I'm using the blue for my shadow. And I'll take some green and drop some green here and there in there. And then just take my tip so I can come up with some grasses. Maybe in the distance, wouldn't it be nice to have a few flowers? So let's, with the same brush and only just using just the tip of the brush, I'm just gonna make a few indication of flowers, just dropping in a few colors of this red that was in our pan. I'll put a few in here too. Okay, and just these areas here that are still white, we're just going to put a little bit of color in here. And get it all smoothed out. here. And as I said, I'll show you how to do the trunks of the trees just with the tip, the very tip of this brush. We'll start with a trunk, and we just want to indicate, we want to skip over, we just want to indicate that there's a branch. We don't want to do a straight line throughout. We just want to give an indication and let the viewer's eye imagine the rest of the tree. Maybe we want a small tree in here. Maybe there's distant trees, little happy trees, like Bob Rossi says. And I think there you have it. We have our own creation based on this photograph, but we made it our own. And you had a demonstration with watercolor, wet on wet, wet on dry, blending colors, scratching with the point of the pen, of the brush. And here we have this brush here that we did in blue. We can go over that now with the green. With a fairly dry brush. And it's a little lighter, it's a little more watered down because these are in the distance. And there you have it. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope to see you again for Sachem Library. This is Marie Camenares saying stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you again soon with another project. Bye for now.